Okay, thank you for having watching it on YouTube, and sorry for the technical issue. There will be actually a poll at the end of the event where you can express some comment. It would be interesting to know if your issue was just on the video or video and audio both. So now go back to the presentation and the status of Switzerland in Northern Europe for 2025. So with respect to 2024, there is an important change. As you heard already from the video, Switzerland now it's considered as an associated to be in the Horizon Europe program. This brings with it that Swiss entities can apply as beneficiaries in 2025 calls. And in practice, so for the postdoctoral fellowship, this means that Swiss institutions can again host the European fellowship, and that Swiss citizens or long-term residents of Switzerland can again participate to the global fellowship. There is only one point that you still need to keep in mind, and is presented here. So on top, you have the timeline of the postdoctoral fellowship. The call will open in May, and it will close in September, the 10th of September. And there will be some times for the evaluator to judge your proposals. And the call results will arrive in February 2026. Now, if we look at the timeline below, this is when the signature of the EU program agreement between Switzerland and European Union is expected. So it is expected in November. So this to say that if this goes according as to this scheme, the grant agreement signature of your proposal will arrive after the signature of this EUPA. If this is the case, nothing changes. Everything is fine. In case, for some unexpected reason, the signature of the EUPA will arrive after the grant agreement signature, and again, the percentage that this happens are very, very low, but still it's important for you to know the risk. So it's not to prevent you to apply, just to give you the complete picture. In this case, if you applied for the European fellowship with a Swiss host, what changes is that instead of European Union to give the money to the host, it will be the Swiss Confederation. So that's not a big change. The big change is if you applied for the global fellowship as Swiss citizen or long-term resident. In that case, you won't be able anymore to sign the grant agreement. But again, that's really an unexpected situation. That said, I give the word to our colleague Nicole.
Thank you, Manuel. I will now take the next 10 minutes to explain several legal and financial aspects in the Marie Curie program, for you to understand how the program works from a legal and financial perspective. So first of all, it's important for you to know who are the actors. It's not just the researcher, but actually the European Commission, in specific for Marie Curie, the agency ERTA, the host institution, normally a university, but also another entity, and again, of course, the researcher or the fellow, normally probably you that are participating today in this webinar. The grant works in this way. The European Commission is the authority issuing the grant to the host institution. The grant is meant to cover 100% of the costs described to implement the project according to the description in the grant agreement. The institution that receives the grant will devote the whole grant to the fellow. And this grant is divided in two main categories: the researcher costs and the institutional costs. So now we will see what this means practically. When you prepare your proposal, you will have to make the budget calculation, which is unit cost based and is automatically calculated. The grant itself and its budget, therefore, will be the financial support for the whole duration of the fellowship for the implementation of the project. This is how the budget table in the proposal looks like, and you will have to fill in these fields. So if you have family allowance, we see what this means in a bit, the duration of your fellowship, and the country where you have the return phase. Then automatically the budget table will be filled in with the unit-based costs. So as you see, there are two, again, main categories, the researcher costs and the institutional costs. Both two categories are then split in other small subcategories. Concerning the researcher cost, which is basically your gross salary, you have a living allowance that corresponds to about 6,000 euros standard month unit cost. This is fixed. This amount is then multiplied per the country correction coefficients that, for example, for Switzerland is 163.8%. Additional to this, you have, sorry, I have some problems in continuing the presentation.
Yeah, I think I choose the mouse.
Can I ask Manuel maybe? Okay, no, now it's good.
Okay.
Additionally to the living allowance, you have then the mobility allowance. This is a fixed amount of 710 euros per month to cover moving and traveling costs, visiting family, accommodation costs, and others. And finally, you have a family allowance of 660 euros for those that are married or have a marriage equivalent status or have dependent children maintained by the researchers. These last two unit costs are fixed and have no country correction coefficient. On top of these costs, there will be the so-called institutional costs. These are 1,000 euros per month for research, training, and networking costs. For example, to attend conferences, trips related to the project, and trainings, etc. Plus a 650 euros for management and indirect costs. For example, covering costs regarding your visa-related fees, travel expenses, and any other additional arising costs from the optional secondment, for example. This 1,650 euros is managed by the host institution, so it doesn't come directly into your bank account like it is instead your researcher cost, but these amounts are devoted exclusively for the researcher and for the implementation of the project, so the institution cannot use it for other purposes. Finally, there are optional additional costs, for example, special needs allowance for those situations where, for example, there is a permanent or temporary condition of the researcher, which is not funded through other sources, but that the host institution must incur, which is certified by a competent national authority, for example, the assistant of a third person or adaptation of work environment or additional travel or transportation costs and arrangements. Also, it's possible to request a long-term leave, which is calculated on a basis of 6,700 euros times the covered percentage by the beneficiary for long leaves of 30 days, parental leave, sick leave, and other special leave. Finally, it is exceptionally allowed also to participate on a part-time basis with at least 50% of work dedicated to the project for personal or professional reasons, except for the outgoing phase of the Global Postdoctoral Fellowship. However, you must apply for 100% position. If then you decide or you see the need of a part-time basis participation, this will be discussed once the grant has been awarded with the project officer. Now, so how much will you actually receive? What are actually the amount that comes to you for as researcher costs? Well, as we said, there is this calculation of the basic 6,000 euros times the country coefficient. So for example, in Switzerland, you will end up with about 10,000 euros, from which you need to deduct twice the social contribution. So first, the host institution will have to deduct normally about 15% of this, and then from your payslip, another additional, normally 10% will be deducted, ending up with about 7,500 euros. To this, you can add the mobility allowance that is fixed, plus, if you are entitled for it, the family allowance. The total amount of about now 9,000 euros will be then taxed for the income tax of about 10%. Please note that these percentages vary significantly in each canton in Switzerland and are based on different variables. So this is just for you to understand how the calculation will go, and that not everything that you see will come actually as a full salary. So basically, removing all the social contribution and adding all the allowances, you will end up with about 8,000 euros, which of course, in the case of Switzerland, need to be exchanged into Swiss francs. And with the current exchange rate, which is also, of course, subject to changes, you end up with about 7,500 Swiss francs. Here is two examples of how the calculation for your project will be done. Here an example with a fellowship without family allowance for a duration of 24 months in Switzerland. As you see, the amount fixed of 6,000 euros multiplied by the time and by the country coefficient. Then the mobility allowance is multiplied by the amount of months, and then you get the amount of researcher costs. Parallel to this, the institutional costs, which are fixed, as just multiplied times the amount of the number of months that the researcher stays has the project running, for a total grant amount of about 290,000 euros. Similarly, for a global fellowship where you have an outgoing phase, in this case, you also have a family allowance and you spend 24 months in Spain and the returning phase of 12 months in Canada. Here, as you can see, the country coefficient changes according to the location where you are. So for the first 24 months in this example, the outgoing phase in Canada, we use the country coefficient of Canada, and then for the returning phase in Spain, we will use the country coefficient in Spain. As you see, the other allowances are not country coefficient dependent, but fixed, and therefore, at the end, the grant will be 311,900 euros. And finally, I would like to spend a few words also on the importance of the ethics and security assessment. This is also part of your proposal and needs to reflect the description of your work. So remember that in the part 4 of the section 4 of your proposal in the part A, basically after the budget table, you will have this table, you see here the screenshot, that will cover 11 main fields that your project may tackle. You have to answer this table with these yes or no options. And remember that if for any reason you answer yes to any of these, you will need to provide additional information which need to also be included inside the description of your proposal. So in particular, you will have to explain how the ethical issues will be addressed in your project, provide documents as evidence if required already at the proposal level or in case needed afterwards, and demonstrate compliance with ethical and legal requirements. Of course, for all this, we are here to support you, and there is also here a link directly to the guidance that the European Commission provides to assess at best your ethics and security issues. And with this, I give back the word to Manuel.
Thank you very much, Nicole. I think it was very helpful. And of course, Nicole is going to stay also for the question and answer section. So don't be shy. Now I give the word to Jason, that he will present his how he managed to become an MSCA fellow. So Jason, if you want to take control.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Can you see the slides?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so thanks a lot. Thanks for the invitation. I'm going to talk a bit about my experience with this Marie Curie fellowship. Mine is called EFT NLO. And here you see already some traces of this Marie Curie. Each time when you give a presentation, you are supposed to put these logos here on the top. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm doing this at CERN. So there's also the CERN logo here. So this is a brief outline. So I'm going to give a very short introduction. And then we will go through the first step of writing a proposal, and then the writing phase, and also about the feedback. And then I will give you a brief conclusions of my experience. So a very brief introduction about myself. I'm a theoretical particle physicist, and I did my PhD in Bern, and then did several postdocs, first at the TU in Munich, and then in San Diego at UCSD. And after that, I went to the University of Zurich, and now I'm at CERN with this Marie Curie Fellowship that I obtained in Geneva. And yeah, my research area is effective field theories, EFTs for short. And with these effective field theories, we try to find physics that goes beyond the standard model of particle physics. So we're basically looking for new particles that could be hiding in the data of CERN and other institutions. So just one slide on this, on my proposal. So EFT NLO, as I mentioned before, EFT stands for effective field theories. And these are just simplified quantum field theories. So these are the typical theories that one uses in particle physics. They unite quantum physics and special relativity. And next to leading order stands for higher order corrections, because one does perturbation theory. And these higher order corrections, they allow to make more precise theory predictions in the end. And this might then lead in the end to the possibility to find new particles, as I said before, in the current and also future particle physics data. Okay, so now for the first steps for writing such a proposal. Of course, first you have to find a good project, something that you're very excited about and passionate, and something that you always wanted to do, and you feel that you're the right person for this. And then next you should find like a host institution, and typically these host institutions, they have some contact points, or you can maybe write to HR. This is what I did in my case. I wrote to HR at CERN, and they have a whole department that only deals with the Marie Curie fellows. And once this first contact is done, then you also need some supervisor that supports your application. And in my case, in CERN, it's the case that when you apply, then once your application is granted by CERN, you get a supervisor associated to you. You don't really get to choose, but somebody is automatically associated to you. But in other cases, you can certainly directly contact a person and then chat to them and see what's possible. And then comes the writing phase, a very important part of the proposal. So one important thing is to structure your proposal in a reasonable manner. And for this, I just advise you to go to the website. There's a template for like a Word document. And first you have to log in and say you want to apply for the Marie Curie Fellowship. And then you finally can use this template. And it has all the sections in it that you need, like these objectives, methodology, impact, excellence, and so on. And then you can start working on this. And what helped me a lot is to make some sort of work plan to really like try to allocate enough time to different parts of the proposal. And so in total, I used about, I would say, rather 2 months of really writing intensively on this proposal. It takes a lot of time reading and so on, and redoing things, and getting also feedback and so on. So really use enough time to write the proposal. Then some challenges faced. It's exactly these deadlines that you you meet all these deadlines, and also sometimes it's difficult to balance between a very in-depth technical proposal versus accessibility. So this you should certainly think about how to do this. And when you get feedback, then sometimes this is also not very simple to incorporate, because some reviewers might say something and others might exactly say the opposite. So sometimes you have to judge a bit what to add and what not. Yeah, then coming to a very important point, which is feedback. So get as much feedback as possible. This is my advice to you. And of course, feedback can come from many different people. For example, from the experts, from your supervisor, other professors or postdocs, from peers, other postdocs or students, and then also from non-experts. This can also be very useful, because then people have a kind of a different view on your proposal. And what helped me a lot is this proposal review from Euresearch that was also mentioned in the video, where, I sent there my proposal, and I got very useful feedback back, which I incorporated completely in my final proposal. And I think it really made things much more clear, and strengthened also a bit the methodology and so on. But it takes a bit of time to really incorporate everything. You have to rewrite different things, restructure the whole thing, but in the end, it really paid off. And I also got very good feedback from a supervisor, which was from CERN. And this helps mainly to adjust also the proposal to the institution itself, so that it fits well into the institution, also into the scientific scope of the institution. And this person also pointed out to me different resources that one can use at CERN. For example, they have a computer cluster for the computations, they have some training hub and so on. So these things are then also very important to put into the proposal. Okay, so this brings me already to my summary. So I would say when you start writing such a proposal, you should try to answer these why questions. So why should it be you? Well, because you are the expert in this field and so on. Why exactly this project? Well, maybe it's a very timely project, and it's the right time to do it now, and so on. So these are really useful questions. Then I get a lot of feedback. This really improved my proposal by very, very much. And finally, be persistent. So if it doesn't work the first time, then just try again and again. I also tried several times, and then in the end I got it. So this is all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason. I think it was very insightful. And